historically was called program flow.
Right.
And this is pre...
So if you started a program you like at 8 o'clock, you'll be there at 11.
Pre-VCRs, pre-remote controls. So people would sit there, and in order to get up, to go to the television set, to change it, was seemingly a simple little easy thing to do, was a big issue of energy of some kind. So as time went on, and now you got the remote control, and now you got 32, 48, 64 channels right now, even 36 channels, even 15 channels, and a remote, there is still this kind of program lethargy. There's grazing, but the amount of information that's out there, the amount that's bombarding you, the amount of alternatives that are sitting around, ready for the plucking, that people don't know about, can't know about, etc., means simply we're in this big transition stage. Right now it's very confusing and frustrating. A lot of people sit there and say, I get this big thing from the company, and it's got all these little colored boxes on it with all these little cable
and I can't even
icons.
work my VCR.
You know, I forget working your VCR. I mean, that's nuclear physics. But people look at it and they say, it blows the mind.
They also say two other things. They say, I don't see enough stuff that I want to watch on all those channels. Or B, they say, I don't have enough time to watch what I do want to watch. And they say, Bruce Springsteen, 57 channels and nothing to watch. We get 500 channels, Mr. Malone has announced. But what's going to be different about it? I mean, and where is the future? This thing you have is interactive, meaning what? I can talk to it. And what difference does that make, and where does that take us? And how do you, coming out of the background you have, make that something beyond what it is now?
Well, first, the thing of all these hundreds of channels, I mean, it does confuse people, and people say, as I say, they say, wait a minute, I don't want what I got now. What am I going to do with all this other stuff?
Right.
The problem is we are in a transition. What interests me is the transition period that we're in. I mean, if it was all done and all figured out, it really wouldn't interest me. I mean, the only things that have ever interested me have really been things that through my own nutty process, or whatever it would be described as, and it's been described as that, and leads better and worse, but through that process, that it changes something that either wasn't there before or changes it into some new thing. So, little point, which is, this transition period, this period of tremendous confusion, frustration, etc., fascinates me because I think that we are almost in an odd way, I mean, we're getting close to its apex of probably frustration. I mean, when you do get these channels, and if you would have a remote control to track them for you,
right.
You'd have to be King Kong to be at its size that you'd be able to operate it. I mean, you're not going to have hundreds of little buttons. I mean, you're at button overload now. What I think it's going to be, and what interests me, and why interactivity, which is, again, this big, word that you say interactive, I think people either go, not me, or they fall asleep. I mean, they say, I don't want to interact. I mean, I don't want, what does that mean? There's something a little dicey about that word?
Right.
I think that that what interests me is that at a point, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you've got hundreds of people working on it. I mean, hundreds. I mean, you've got hundreds of companies, and thousands of people, and huge amounts of capital, from established phone companies to new players in the world of telephony. I learned how to pronounce that word recently, too. I just learned how to pronounce it.
One step at a time here.
I think it was the other way around, you know? I thought it was telephony, and then I thought, oh, interesting play. But all of these players are going to get us to a stage within a few years, at least I think, where you're going to have a remote control that's got 3 things on it. On, off, a cursor, what we know of in computer talk, as a thing that moves a icon around a screen and points to something.
And there'll be a symbol where you can select whether you want that or not.
And the third thing will be execute, meaning do something. Either change the channel, order something, give me information back, I want to know more, all of those things will end up being in this very simple, I think at least, and that's why I say that we're in this arc from this simple world of 25, 30 years ago where there was no technology, to technology at our throats, to, in a few years, the people who are doing interesting things now are working on simplifying it so that when you get to a program that interests you, say you didn't see 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago, but you heard that they did an interview with Saddam or with the Clintons or with whatever.
Right.
And you'd simply press a thing and it would be there quick. Or it would be something where you would say, I'm not going to be, it's going to be on, it says on my screen it's going to be on today, tomorrow, Friday, a week from Thursday. You'll take this little finger of yours that will know how to work this because it's much easier than any current process, and you'll drag it to the video cassette little icon, little figure, and you'll press a button, it'll record it for you, you'll come home a week later, and it'll be there. In other words, these things will simplify, and they will answer your question, which is, if there's part of the problem is there are tons of things that are interesting on television, and as it gets more fractionated, which it will, there are going to be lots of other things going to interest just you. That will be, or that person, or this person. There'll be all sorts of very, very, very narrow-casted items, broadcasting mass communications engines.
Okay, but let me go back to your selection process. If that's, my first question is, how far off is this? Because the 500 channels will be here by 94?
No,
in a couple,
no, I don't think you, I mean, who really knows in this area? I mean, we don't have them yet. The whole process of compression, meaning that you can take an existing channel now, or the width that it takes on that wire now, and compress it so that you can add 10 more. And if you use that current ratio, that's how you get up to 500. But it's not there yet. I would say it's 3 years away, 4 years away from being certainly up there in the 100, 150, 200. But
yes, and a couple of questions come right after that. One is that I hear you saying, you who left Fox, having created a network with the help of other people, and retired at the top of your powers and said, wait a minute, I'm going to pull back, and I'm going to find out what I want to do next. I want to own my store, but I got to figure out which store. You simply dived into this because you thought this would make you a player in the future, and it was new and unpredictable, and you didn't know where it was going, but at least you'd be there wherever the future was going.
I'd use my process, which is to make mistakes in the pursuit of figuring it out, which is what I've always really done. I mean, when there's nothing written and there's nothing in front of you, or where it is unknown in a lot of it, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, Fourth Network hadn't happened. Everybody said you couldn't do it. It's been tried 100 times in the preceding 10, 15, 20 years. I think that the process that's intriguing is that's the process of making mistakes, learning from the mistake, and making the road, which has got nothing written on it, one you can get down, get through. That's interesting.
People like NBC and CBS and ABC and yes, maybe even Fox, probably are scared to death. They see their market share shrinking, I suspect, and clearly do. Are they becoming dinosaurs, and is there going to be blood on the floor because people are going to be casualties of the rush to the new technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think there'll be plenty of casualties, I would guess. There is when you get these kinds of transitions. I mean, I think that the three networks plus Fox, I mean, they are mass engines of broadcasting. They're real wide birds. They are going to have to, though, learn and adapt their infrastructure. Fox already did it, because it started that way. Fox
it started lean and hungry without the kind of overhead.
It's got 300 employees. I mean, and its next biggest competitor, NBC, has 4,200 or something. So it can live in a world where it's organized to get 10% of the audience and be very profitable. Fox gets, right now, 13% of the audience. NBC getting 18, 20, 22% of the audience is so highly geared that they're going to have to go through something akin to what happened to the automotive companies in this country.
So what will
when they had foreign competition. We've got domestic competition. in information and entertainment, and it's going to continue.
And who are the new empire builders? Clearly, John Malone is one of them at TCI.
Yeah, I would think so.
Who else? Who are the people on the forefront of this? Who's on the cutting edge
Well,
of where it's going?
I think that the people who are thinking about the possibilities, and certainly cable, if you contrast cable and their process to broadcasting and its process. Broadcasting, most of the people in it are one way or the other kind of holding on, trying to figure it out, worrying about, oh my God, we've got to change that, I've got to throw those programs off and put these new programs on, we've got competition from here. We're not making any real money. We don't see real growth ahead of us, I mean, except banging the next guy over the head as our audience,
fighting for shrinking power.
you know, as our audience narrows. They spend almost no time thinking about, well, what are the possibilities? How do you adapt to a future which is going to be more complicated? The cable companies, you talk to anybody who's in cable, and they're talking to you about things that, again, you have to figure out how to pronounce them.
All right.
Now, what I'm saying is their minds are unbelievably alert to what is going on in the whole world of communications. And they think of their world as extraordinarily wide, while the people in broadcasting, primarily, who've had this extraordinary business has not been competed with for 50 years, basically. Fox was an early competitor to it, and cable came along competing a little. But up until a relatively short time, I mean, what you basically did is you came into the station, you turned the lights on,
right,
and you just made not only nothing but money, but you could play golf, and you could go to the club, and you could do whatever, and it didn't really matter, because every year it went up 10%, 15%.
It was the only game in town.
It was the world of double-digit increases. It was also a world where every dollar you took in, you were kind of used to putting 50 cents in your pocket after costs. Now, that does not last forever, and I think that the people in cable, the people, certainly people who were involved in the telephone, the telcos, the RBOCs, I learned that word too.
What was that mean?
Regional Bell Operating Companies. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah. The other question that comes up for those people who are looking at this, it is that they look at you at QVC, which means what? Quality, variety,
value,
convenience. Quality, value, and convenience. And they say he is not going to be satisfied just to sell products on television. He sees this as a way to do something else. Where is your mind thinking in terms of what else you can do with just the piece that you have?
Well, I think that what the piece that we have means, and again, it's this word interactive that tends to scare people, but I mean, it simply means anything that involves some sort of a transaction, anything that involves something other than passive, just watching.
Right.
That means getting information. To me, I see the world that I'm involved with as one that not only is engaged in developing home shopping, which is at a very primitive level of its development. I mean, it's a real business, but it's most people who look at it and say, what, this is, I mean, yeah, there are some good things in and among here, but, there's a lot of jewelry on that, and there are little dolls and things like that. I mean, this is going to expand to every category of retailing. The market is not television shopping. The market is retailing.
And the secret is you've got access to all those people who can sit there and choose your product.
I was talking to somebody today who runs Saks, and they went to QVC yesterday to talk to them about, here was this interesting thing in the future. And he said to me, he said, we're there and we're watching this organization, this infrastructure that can actually take in one day 80,000 separate orders and ship every single one of them out the back door every day of the year. And he said, it occurred sitting there, this is a department store that has 43 million customers. Now, at the moment, not that many of them use it. But over time, when the process is friendlier, which it will be, again, it's going to be friendlier because the technology has really led us there. It's just now It's just now execution. It just needs to roll itself out. So it will be a friendlier process. And what it will do, in fact, is make your normal, everyday purchases enabled by this simple, convenient, easy, trustworthy way to do it. So I think just in the area of retailing as a new player, it's a young player, but it's certainly a healthy, kicking little baby player. I think in every category, it's got potential. And again, there are going to be a multiplicity of channels, so it will fill up in all different ways, all of which you can conceive fairly easily. But that's just one category. I also think, I'll be long-winded in this, the other categories are information. Right now, I think you'd say, you can't read everything that you're interested in.
Of course not.
And it's much worse now than it was last year, isn't it? And
of course it is.
Every few years it gets almost metastasizedly worse. Well, there is, I believe, absolutely a whole series of services that are going to be there the day after tomorrow that are going to help you, that are going to give you the information that you want, that you will enjoy reading for pleasure, or that relate to the world that you relate to, that is much more focused for you. And it'll come out and be enabled somehow through this same or an allied process. I'm very interested in information. I'm very interested in how do you backhaul, so to speak, that information and organize it and package it and present it to all sorts of people in all sorts of different areas of life.
But also, people who know you know, you're talking about product that's already been made. Also, people know that you also are a creative force, and the experience you have in this community in Hollywood in terms of creating television programs and creating movies, that you clearly have some desire, you must have, to provide entertainment that has not yet been created, because you have that big audience out there, and you can use the resources you have to do some things that are not being done now, that haven't yet taken place.
Well, you know what, we get to define what is entertainment in a sense now. I mean, the pure disciplines, I mean, making either television or motion picture, dramas or comedies. I mean, I certainly hope I'll play a role in that in the future as the opportunity comes. But
let me move to this point. How was the feeling when you decided you were going to leave Fox, personally? And did you agonize over it? Was it a dramatic decision for you? Was this something that...
convulsive.
Why?
Well, because I had to do this thing, which is I had to kind of come clean up with my life. I had to say, well, you know, if I really feel this, if I really believe this, if I really say, you know, just for me, I mean, I'm not speaking of the world at large, but I don't really want to work for anyone anymore. I want to be a principal in the things that I spend this time with. I've done this. I've been this category for a long time, and I want to stop it. Now, you know, that's the kind of idea that you do in your car, or you do kind of talking late, or you do whatever. But to actually do it, I mean, to say, you know, I gotta come clean to it. I gotta act. If I believe it, I either have to say I ain't up to it, or I'm gonna do it. Once you do that, it's a nightmare, but you do it.
What was the fear? Was there any fear that, you know, I mean, it was comfortable, you were a king in this, you know, on any list of the most powerful people in this community, you were at the top of the list with 2 or 3 other people. Was there any fear there, leaving? Fear of what? That I may not be up to it? The fear that it's too unknown? The fear that I'm walking away from something that's...
Well, I mean, there are all sorts of things. There's that, of course. I mean, one of the leaders, historical leaders of this business, said to me, well, you know, this is really unbelievable that you've done this, but you know, nobody's going to call you. I mean, you know, you're not going to be able to go to that restaurant you like to go to and just walk in the door and do all of this and all of that. And you know, then there's this thing about you're going to have to go to that airport and stand in line. I mean, this is a hideous way to live your life. And I kept rolling that stuff around in my head, and I said, well, it's true. That's going to be painful. I'm not going to like that. I'm certainly not going to enjoy losing a whole series of things that I'm kind of used to, and I've been used to for a very long time, because I'm an old-ish dog. I've been in these companies for a long time.
For 20 years.
25 years. So I started taking each one of them, and I said, you mean I'm not going to do it for a restaurant reservation?
Yes.
You mean I'm not going to do it because my phone list will be 87% voided? And I thought, wait a minute. First of all, if for no other reason, I should do it for that. Just for those reasons. Just to change it. Secondly, if that's why I'm not doing it, then I'm really crummy. I mean, I'll have to accept some version of myself I don't want to accept, and that's a big part of it, is in the end, people said to me, oh, God, you're such a courageous thing you've done, and given us symbol of,
you did what we all would want to do.
To the working classes, you're this hero, and I kept saying, I had no choice. So first they said,
you had no choice because...
They said, oh, my God, you mean, so it wasn't him. You mean, they threw him out.
Yeah.
And I said, because I saw it in people's eyes immediately, and I said, no, I had no choice because I couldn't not do it. I had no choice. I could not stay in a situation that was hardly punitive labor, but I couldn't stay in a situation that I didn't believe in and get through the next day.
Didn't believe in it because you weren't running the whole thing. You did not own it, or didn't believe in it because you thought it was in some way a dinosaur.
Well, no. Well, first of all, I had kind of gotten to the point where, while there was work left to be done, the company was in extraordinary shape. Right. We had landed the Fox Broadcasting Company. And so long as we didn't, I mean, we'd gotten through the period of scaring the horses and having it end. So long as you didn't bang it with a sledgehammer, it would survive. It would probably keep growing. So that part of it was over. But it wasn't the dinosaur aspect of it so much. That came later, actually. I mean, that came 3 months after I had stopped working in this environment, and I said, you know, there's a world out there that I find, just me, really interesting. But, sorry.
Well, no, tell me about that. I mean, there is this sense, I mean, people look at that. You took time off. You didn't know where you were going. You had plenty of money, and we all know about that, and you got a lot of money when you left Fox. We know about that, and you still had stock in Fox. We know about that, and so this is not somebody that's taking a giant financial risk. It's only in terms of adding to what you already had. But was there a freeing feeling once you began to extract yourself from this corporate environment, and you're off simply saying, what's this rest of this world about?
Well, I started driving around, and I started visiting places that intrigued me. I wanted to learn about computers, because I just thought they were interesting. I thought, I don't know how to do that. Other people seem to know how to do that, and it seems really interesting. And I want to learn. I want to understand that. And as more I learned about it, the more it kind of confused and frustrated me, and I went up and spent a day at Microsoft, and in the middle of Silicon Valley, I spent a lot of time wandering around, learning, and trying to understand why so little of it made sense to me. I don't mean made sense to me in terms of the fact that computers work. I mean that hardly necessarily normal, but somebody who doesn't really have such training and background and whatever looks at a computer screen and says, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, and you're making it so difficult. You think you're making it easy to people in the computer business, and I tell you, it's impossible. I mean, you really have to know what you're doing. And I thought, why don't they make it easier? It can't be that hard to make it easier. And that led me to MIT, to places where they're trying to make it easier, back to Microsoft, where they are working. A lot of people are working on this interfacing to make it easier. But they're doing it somewhat for other techies. I, who cannot, I mean, not only change a light bulb, should I touch a light bulb, it explodes. But I say it's got to pass a whole different kind of test. I like that. I want to play that role. I think that's what interactivity is about. I think it's all going to come through. Everything, one way or the other, is coming through, not everything, but is coming through a television screen.
Yeah. It's a marriage between computers, telecommunications, television, digital, and what else? Am I missing? Telephone.
Well,
telephone.
certainly it's telephony.
Yeah.
Second time.
Here's a quote from you. I fight to keep my instincts clean. Instead of all allowing our natural instincts to flow, we tend to relate what we've learned. What I try to do is base future decisions on past successes. I must judge in the abstract. You said that in 1972, but it seems almost relevant to what you did, trying to make sure that your instincts for the future were not corroded by what you had learned.
You have to clean them up
in the past.
all the time, I think. I mean, it's funny, when you said that I said that in 72, I thought, you know, way back I remember, and I think it was actually before then when we started doing the movie of the week, and we've done it for 3 or 4 years.
Is it ABC?
At ABC. And we'd gotten up to doing 75 of them, and you know, this little baby staff was like pouring these television movies out. And I thought, you know, you have to fight. I mean, in the early period, I was really sure, because I had a clean slate, and I was sure that if I was interested in it, someone else was interested in it. I didn't care about research. I've never cared about research. But I just thought, if it's in the mainstream of my interests, it's going to interest somebody else, because after all, otherwise, there could be no popular culture if that didn't work. The trick later on, not early. Early, the thing is, it's easy, basically relatively easy to act instinctively, meaning this is a good thing or a bad thing, if you've got no stuff weighing you all down. But what happens is you get involved in the process. You know too much. People start telling you things. The research does come in. The people do say, well, it worked last time, schmuck. Didn't you see? There it is. So do it again. Oh, this is just a version of that.
But this community that you have functioned in seems to be, as much as any community I know, one that clones itself and clones itself and clones itself. It's Home Alone and Home Alone 2 and Home Alone 3 and the brother of Home Alone and the sister of Home Alone, and you're off and running.
It eats its young.
It eats its young.
Now, the thing is that the issue about instincts is what you have to do is you have to fight hard, I think. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes you succeed at it, but sometimes you don't. You have to fight to literally go in with a big Brillo pad and fight them clean. Somehow, some way. You just have to force yourself. And it's hard to do because it's much easier to relax and say, yeah, it'll work.
Yeah.
Give them, you know, it'll work.
We can make some money from it.
Whatever. So I think that's, one of the things I realized in doing this was, my God, it's given me a clean slate on which to screw it all up again, meaning get very sophisticated within it, and then not be very effective, which I think after a while you're not if you don't change stuff.
Tell me about the legend that you have created out here. It sort of comes down to this. Tough boss, dangerous adversary. That's what they say.
Yeah, I think probably the first is John, that dangerous adversary. There are no casualties. I mean, I don't think. So.
Tough boss, but not necessarily?
Well, dangerous adversary means that...
They're scared to death of you.
Well...
Scared to death.
There's this voice.
No, it's not. What do you think it is? I mean, there is that sense of you. You've been around here. I mean, you've had people...
What was that?
Well, you've left some people there. Well, the body language was, you know, I guess...
No, I'm impossible. The truth is, I mean, the people who work in the process after, I mean, they do kind of, at least maybe, I wouldn't say I flatter myself, but I think after a while, I do see in their eyes that as crazy in a sense as it is, or as demanding as it is in another sense, and as it's tight. You know, I think that the sieve should be very tight. The process of doing that's harsh. It's not, you know, it is a harsh process. I think it kind of works. I think the people enjoy it. Some of them.
Enjoy what?
Well, enjoy the thing of saying, because I really do think this is true, that you bash something around through every wall that you can find to find out what's left, what's the residue, and is it any good? That's the issue about instincts and keeping them clean. It's the same in any kind of process. Fielding a new network. I mean, we had a lot of very, very tough times birthing that thing. And it was a harsh process.
And everybody wanted you to fail.
Everybody thought we'd fail. It was very easy. I mean, I'm sure they, in addition, kind of liked the idea too. But I've had that. I mean, anybody in this community who does this kind of work is not going to have a lot of people who probably don't wish them well. But the point of the process is that it really is saying we're not going home until we can honestly, to the best honesty we can, we'll make all sorts of mistakes even then, of figuring it out. I mean, most people, you know, they go home, they say, it's good enough. Yeah. Now, if you're especially trying to do something that hasn't been done before in an unfriendly environment, you better look at every single thing, down to not just the lettering, but the gas that goes in the car of the truck that's got the lettering on it.
If you don't care about the details,
make your choices. That's not an easy process, and I know that, and you know, so I'm sure, and it does have. I mean, it isn't lovely to watch, I guess. It's fun to do, I think, and enough people who've done it with me who think so too, I think, without being overly.
Tell me about power, though.
I think so,
The sense of power.
Don't use it.
Don't use it?
Well,
use it every day.
Well,
don't you? I mean, you must have some sense. I mean, Kissinger and people like that. Kissinger said, power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. I know you're familiar with that quote. Is it? Or Anna got it from him.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you'd have to lead a dull, sensory life if it were the ultimate one.
Yeah, that's right. It says something about your life of pleasure, doesn't it?
It's complicated, I guess. The reason I immediately said don't use it is that I do think, I mean, I'm not the greatest observer of this probably, but I think most people that have a lot of what is called power use it very sparingly and don't operate out of a sense of it. I mean, they operate, I think, mostly out of a sense of what is necessary to do and can they do it. Not, I got all this power, now let me spend the capital.
Okay, I don't mean that. Not power for the sake of power, but you use it only when it helps you get to where you think.
But I also think, I don't know. I've been told, and I know that I've certainly had positions that have had that as an attribute of them said by others. I've never really thought so. And my friends who have similar situations, positions, we sometimes kid about this, you know, and say, you know, what is this? Everybody says,
why are they scared of me?
Thing and all this stuff and whatever, and we're in here trying not to fail. I mean, that's what we're basically doing, worrying about everything that we can find and not find to worry about. So I think it's misunderstood, both looking in and looking out.
And what do you think is the difference between those that fail and those that don't fail?
In what? I mean,
in whatever the venture is, whatever the endeavor is.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's not a passion. It's
well,
passion.
no.
It's some attention to.
No, I just know. I know my own process. Part of the process is to find. You really do have to find what people believe, and belief is passion. And the louder you can hear the passion, the more there is a sense that if you can pull it off, somebody else will appreciate it.
You won't play with them, though, if there's no passion, will you? I mean, you look for that.
Yeah, I do. People have said, I don't like your management style. Yeah. I don't like this. It's not, you know, you get two people to argue about an issue, and sometimes you're one of the two, and that makes it much more difficult, but you like this kind of conflict. And I say, yes. Well, I think in any creative process, argument tells you where the passion is, especially if it's, do we make this movie or do we make that movie? Do we do this or do we not? Do we put the show on the air? Do we not? I mean, it ought to go through a tough test. I think the reason stuff ain't as good as I think it could be is I don't think that process is prized enough.
Why not?
Expediency, professionalism, everybody's a pro. You know, I mean, the savviness of it all is death. The whole theory that this is a business of relationships, of which it, I mean, it really isn't. I mean, the people who have succeeded most in this business have not been people that you would say, oh, he's got great relationships, and never did. It certainly wasn't true in the foundings of this business, those guys hardly lived their life on how good their relationships
You mean
were.
the Warner and the Mayors and
Yes,
the Cones
the
and the
founders,
rest of them?
sure.
Yeah.
They did it based on their guts and their sensibility and landing their will on the page, one way or the other. Today, I think part of the endless players in these businesses is that they think that it's about relationships. It's not. It's about what's the best idea and who's the best person available to do it.
That's him.
Well, to strip it all away, of course. It certainly is not about he likes me, she likes me, he'll do this because. I mean, if he does, he's a fool. If I do it because of a relationship, I'm a fool.
Talk about this country for a few minutes. You were a liberal Democrat.
Yes.
With pride. You look at the 80s, in which we had a lot of people prospered, and you thought, what about that decade of Republican rule?
I thought it was mean and in a way hopeless. It kind of said we ought to be kind of self-satisfied and assume that it doesn't work and therefore have no rules, have no way of saying this is the thing we should really be interested in fixing. We've got to straighten this out. It's cynicism. At its root, it was too cynical for me.
And today you feel more of what about
Oh,
the country
God,
as we enter this decade?
I think that, I'm enormously optimistic.
Because of
Clinton? I'm ready to be disappointed because I think that it can happen because my optimism is so high. Sure, it's Clinton. It's a change. It's the first change in more years than most people realize. I mean, Carter was just a blip.
4-year blip in terms
on
of
the horizon, and it
rule.
was over before it started. It was over in a few months. I mean, this is the first time people talk of our generation, so to speak.
Right.
But it's the first time that you get a guy who actually says, criticized for by the media, but who says, I'm going to stay in a room for 20 hours. I'm going to look at a problem. I'm going to try and get more facts. I'm going to try and understand it. And I'm going to try and make it better. You know, what a joy that is. Here's a guy who looks at a whole range of things and says it's possible. Now, of course, if it's going to be this old Democratic, thing of let's spend the money and let's create dumbbell social programs that won't work and do it all, but that's the danger of it. But it can't be used as an excuse to do nothing. It can't be used as an excuse to say, oh, let's just be cynical.
You were on the podium the night that he made his acceptance speech.
Yeah, I was, happily.
When did the relationship develop between the two of you? I mean, there were not that many people who were not
It's
special.
actually about 2 years ago. The group of people in the Democratic Party said, we really have got to start acting professionally if we think we're ever going to be able to get somebody elected.
We want to win.
We want to win. We don't want to be the fools who do it badly every time. So we thought, some of the people thought that we should get a group together, raise some money for the party itself, get a research function staff so that you could get proper data, be, in a sense, this professional organization so that we could be 1/20th as good as the Republicans were at electing national
presidential candidates.
So there was a meeting, and it was to raise the initial funding. All the players came, and at that point, there were at least 10 of them, undeclared, obviously, and one of them was Clinton. And all of the first-line people who were there, as they say, mentioned this.
Right.
And we divided up into groups. There were like 30 people there. And we divided up into very small groups to spend a half a day talking among ourselves. And then we'd report what we thought back to the big group. Right?
Yes. What was your area?
No. So each group got one of the guys, so to speak. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 or 5 people, actually. And one of the possible candidates, 1 or 2, actually. Well, our group got not, as they say, the pick of the litter for whatever reason. We got, not that we chose, it's just we got Clinton.
It was not the front runner.
Who was the last horse in the train.
He was the guy who gave the bad speech
and we went
in
up,
84, 88.
Mrs. Harriman's house in the country, and we went to this area by our garden and sat for 3 or 4 hours and talked. And I said, wow, I don't know anything. I just know this guy's really smart, and he's interesting. And I just thought, I thought good.
He's my guy?
No, I thought good. I didn't know more than that.
Yeah.
And then he came to see me after that in California, and I got to know him a little better. And then I got kind of a good friend of mine, Senator Garry, Bob, decided he would run and surprised me and said, you have to do that. And I said, well, I want to do both, and I did that, and I helped.
So you didn't make a choice back then?
Well, I did and I didn't. I did as much as I could, consistent with my relationships, with people I had an obligation to. But I did as much as I could to help. And I don't think I did that much, but I did try and help.
Would you, under any circumstances, go to Washington?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, you can't think of something that you would want.
I don't think I'd be good at it. Because...
But before you say that, there are people who will talk about your role in the Fenton decision, and your colleagues at here give you enormous credit for the way you understood Washington and played that game.
Well, I think that the arguments that I kind of led on FinCEN were on the side of the angels. I'm not so sure that it was knowing the city. I think it was just that there was public service, there were public issues underneath it, and I think that was on the side of the public issues. But I found, just in trying to help in the Democratic Party and in the process, that it's very difficult if you're used to saying, we really are going to stay up all night, or we're going to bash through the walls to find out what's the right thing to do, because there are so many constituencies to be served. It's so political. And I'm, maybe it'd be something it'd be fun for me to learn and discipline myself, but I'm not a great political player.
Is the Hollywood community more liberal than conservative, as the common assumption is?
Sure, it was more humanist. I mean, so it's certainly, it would have to be.
Then how do you explain Ronald Reagan?
How explain it? My God.
As a gifted politician.
How do I explain it?
Yeah, how do you explain Ronald Reagan was so popular in
None of us
California,
need to.
and that no Democrat...
Because he's the real thing.
He's what?
He's the real thing.
He's authentic.
The real thing. He's a great guy. Whether you agree
and
with
so
him
therefore
or disagree with him, he's two things. He's absolutely the real thing. He's comfortable in his skin, and he believes what he believes. And when you hear it, you know that you ring that gong, and it pulls true. So that's, well, of course it's appealing. How could it not be?
Did you vote for him?
No.
But you respect him as a friend?
Yeah, I do respect
But you think
him.
the 80s were
agree.
terrible for the country.
I don't
You think
agree.
the country was going into, the dumpers in the 80s when he was president, right?
Yeah, but I
You don't tell Mrs. Reagan that, but you believe that.
Well, I've actually recently...
Recently told her?
Did that, but,
It's safer now.
But no, well, it wasn't that. But of course I respect him. I respect him because he believed what he believed. And it's not the way I would operate it. And I certainly wouldn't want to have somebody operate it that way and didn't vote for him. But of course I respect him.
You respected his authenticity.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You're a son of this town.
Yeah.
Did your parents live their life?
No, my
Neither.
father died just this year.
This year?
Yeah.
So he lived to know your success.
Yeah, 1 month. Well, no, 1 month after I left Fox. One of the things, because he had a bad heart, and he technically, his doctor kept saying, I don't know how this heart keeps beating, but it does. And when I was leaving Fox, I thought, oh, God, I mean, he's not going to understand this. And how do I tell him? And I'm worried about if I tell him, I'll shock him or, and
He'll think my son's gone crazy.
well, certainly he would think that, but I thought I worried a little. So I was very careful about going over to their house, and I didn't want anybody, I didn't tell anybody until the last hour of the last day, but I went over to his house, and we sat outside, and I said, I've decided to do this thing, and I'm talking really slow. And he's like leaning forward and he's saying, and I'm saying, I'm going to leave Fox. I said it so quietly he didn't hear me, and so he had no reaction. Then I said it a little louder, and he went, great.
Did you really?
Yeah, and he smiled, and since it was great because at that time, they wrote all this stuff about me, and as my friends would say to me, it's really nice to have your obituary written while you're still functioning.
That's right.
Because they wrote this
This is the guy who created the Fox network.
Tonnage of stuff. And so he got to see all that.
Yeah.
Then he went on a boat, and a month later, and if you have to die, which I guess
We all do.
I don't know, I'll test it. But anyway, if you have to, die in your sleep with somebody you love after you kiss them goodnight. That's what happened.
Wow. Brothers and sisters?
My older brother who died.
It was killed here,
Yeah.
murdered.
Yeah.
Long time ago?
A long time ago.
Yeah. Hard? Were you close?
75, no, not very.
You went to, after graduating, I guess, from high school, you went to college.
No, I didn't.
No, but you never graduated from high school even?
Oh, of course I graduated from high school.
And then you went to...
Beverly Hills High in those days was not hard to graduate
yeah.
from. I only went 3 days a week.
And you went away to what? You did at least enroll. You give me that. You enrolled.
Kind of.
You never intended to go. You did that to please your father.
Yeah, I did it because I thought I was supposed to do it. And then I was there 2 months, and I was staring at a book, and I said...
Not for me. Because?
Because I didn't, it was pointless. I thought...
They had nothing to teach
I
you?
thought there's no point to this. I don't want to do this. I didn't know what I wanted to do, by the way, either. It wasn't like I said, God, I just can't wait to get out of here and go...
Because I want to be in the mailroom of William Morris.
I went home and I went to sleep for 6 months. I went into kind of hibernation. My father didn't speak to me most of the time. He would see me in the hallways, like 2 in the afternoon, as I would be getting up and, he'd be coming home. And didn't like it.
He never asked you what the hell you're going to do with your life.
He just growled. He would growl, mostly silently, but I knew the growl was there, nevertheless.
Have you for a moment ever regretted that?
Which?
Not the growl. Finishing...
the tales of the regretting of the growl.
No. Finishing college, just for whatever. I mean, you're a man of sophistication and taste.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I know people who say, for all that I've done and for all the millions and all the success, I'm sorry I didn't finish it.
Well, since I didn't start it,
yeah.
I can't really say. I mean, I wish I was better. I wish I was better educated because people that I know very, very well have really good educations, and they just floor me. I mean, they just wipe me on the floor with what they know and what I don't know. But it was great that pardon me?
But I was going to say it has made no difference in the way you have lived your life. I mean,
I don't know. Who knows? Could have. I could have gone to school.
Yeah.
If I started, I probably would have kept going.
You went into the mailroom at William Morris.
Yeah.
Wanting to be an agent.
No.
Wanting to do what? Not even close.
No, I woke up one day and I said, I know what I'm interested in.
What was it?
I want to be in the entertainment business. That's what I really want to be. I don't know what, because I don't know anything, but this is what interests me. I like this. I like these things. I've always liked these things, and I got to the point of admitting it. So I thought, well, what can I do? I'm 19 years old. I certainly don't know how to do anything. Nobody's going to give me nobody's going to give me a job, to do anything.
You've got no skills.
So I thought, okay, what would you do? Well, I knew stuff, so I thought, stuff meaning I knew some of the, at least, possible houses. So I said, well, you know what? I'll go to an agency. They do all the stuff. I'll learn there. And I did, and actually, I did. I kind of, they say, people say they go to, like, England and they read. They go to, I went to William Morris and read for 3 years.
You go to Oxford and you read.
Exactly. Right. I went to William Morris.
What'd you read? Contracts?
I went to, there was one job no one wanted. It was in the mimeograph room. It was in the basement. And that was the job that I wanted because it took 10 minutes to mimeograph the stuff. They had a file room that was 40 by 40 feet. And I read from A to Z. I literally started at A, and I read through it.
You knew all the contracts and all the provisions
I read
and everything.
you know, you read a file of somebody's life. I mean, there were 2 drawers on Elvis Presley. I mean, 12 feet.
On Presley.
Drawers
See, this is what draws you and Clinton together. You're the world's leading expert on on Presley.
My mind is a sieve. But the so I read the file room, and it was great. It was a real good grounding. And then I left because I knew when it got to the time when I was supposed to be an agent, I wouldn't be good. I wasn't. I became a little junior agent for a few months. I was pathetic. I wasn't good at it.
So when ABC came around with a job as assistant to somebody, you said, count me in.
Yeah, other things had happened, and I said I knew that was a good idea. And then the day, as luck will have it, the day I accepted being the assistant to the lowly, so to speak, head of West Coast, I don't know, mid-level programming, the guy 16 levels up from him, his name was Edgar Sherrick, who was the head of programming, the czar of ABC, quit, and they reached down, and this guy, Leonard Goldberg, who I'd gotten to know, who had hired me, became the head of programming. And I, at the age of 23, became his assistant. So.
And then at 27, though, you were head of what, primetime programming? I mean, head of making made-for-TV movies.
That was a little earlier than that. But by then, by 27, I think it was most series programming on ABC.
When you look at going from ABC, going to Paramount, and then going to Fox, any regrets in any of this evolution that you saw? I mean, were there times in which you made a decision to go one direction or the other, you say, boy, that was a stupid ass?
I had so few, I've only had like a few jobs. I mean, I've only been in a few companies. I haven't like moved around a lot. I almost have done it, but something at the last minute of the decision to actually pursue it said, don't do that, just don't, it's not good. So no, I mean, I wanted to go to Paramount principally because it wasn't that I was brought into Paramount as chairman of the company at 32. I was the first person from television to do it. But I thought at Paramount I'd have a real possibility to change things. So no, I've always been okay with it.
Good luck. Thanks. Pleasure. Good to have you. Barry Diller. See you again next time.
Charlie Rose is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the financial support of viewers like you, and by these additional funders.
Make it a Comedy Central mic.
I'm Alan King, comedian. Tonight, we go inside the comedy mind of Garry Marshall. During the week of January 8th, 1979, your shows, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, were the #1, 2, and 3 rated shows in the country. Now, Garry, you could have gone on cranking out television series. You had a money machine. What was the need to become a motion picture director?
I did television for 20 years. I started in nightclubs, and actually when I was in the Army, I was in radio, so I'd come up through the ranks, and I did television for 20 years, and I was very kind to me. We had some hits, but after 20 years, I thought that I had explored a lot of the things I wanted to explore in TV, and I was always fascinated by the movies. I had done movies earlier. 2 movies went into oblivion, never heard of again. which I had written and produced. And after 20 years, I said, let me try to do something. And of course, with you just mentioned, my shows were 1, 2, and 3. I said, hello, I like to do a movie. And they said, we're not sure you can do comedy. You know, it's a different thing in the movies. We don't know. So, you know, you got to start at the bottom again. And not just the bottom. I did finally get a picture through ABC Films, which I had my shows on, ranked 1, 2, and 3. You'd figure they'd give me a shot.
A little muscle.
I did good by them. So I did it for Fox and ABC. It was called Young Doctors in Love. It was a straight-out crazy farce, and I brought it in on budget, on time, and it made a few dollars. And well, I did Flamingo Kid after
Flamingo Kid, wonderful film.
Which was Richard Crenna, Hector Elizondo. Then I had the great pleasure of doing Nothing in Common with Jackie Gleason. It was his last film, and it was an education working with him, and just a pleasure.
Let's talk about Pretty Woman. What was the fascination? Why did, and it's not only a woman's picture.
No, it did very well.
And right across the board.
When you do 180 million, a man has to show
Somebody,
up.
yeah.
So it can't just be women, 180 million. But, and it did very well.
What attracted you to the material?
Pretty Woman came in as a very dramatic picture. It was a very heavy, kind of dark view of a relationship between a rich mogul and a hooker. And the final analysis, they said they hired me to try to lighten it up. And what I saw in it was Cinderella, to be honest.
That's the fantasy.
Yes. A wonderful comedian we both know named Phil Foster one day at the Stage Delicatessen in New York said, here's the answer, Garry. All stories are Cinderella. Every story is Cinderella. That's what it's about. And then he went back and kept eating, and he didn't say anything for another half an hour.
Very profound.
Yes, so I wrote it down. Phil says, I was started. So to me, in Pretty Woman's original script, I saw Cinderella, and we made it with 2 wonderful actors. I think we are a society that loves to discover a new star, and we discovered Julia Roberts was, a new star, and everybody went to see the new star, and I think that helped the film, too.
You get a Richard Gere and Miss Roberts, who are not funny people, I mean.
Never did a stand-up, Richard Gere.
Right, you know.
Never. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Gere. Never happened.
He's always in Tibet,
yes,
you know,
Tibet,
meditating.
I'm quiet, I'm happy, leave me alone.
As a director, with your comedy, visual, verbal, you know, all the shticks, do you find it more challenging or more difficult to take a good actor and make him funny, or to take a very funny guy and make him a good actor? How do you work with both, either or?
I work with both, but I think there's a big difference.
What's easier for you?
Well, I think neither one is easy. They're both kind of hard, but they're both 2 different ways. What I do with an actor who is not particularly funny, I try to find a sense of humor in the daily life together. We hang around together. I see where his humor might lie. I think that if he has no humor at all, then my father didn't have much sense of humor. My mother did, but my father still was able to make us laugh once in a while. So I always feel there's hope. But I would walk with Richard, and we'd find some ways that he could be hit some comedy beats, and that's what we would then tailor it to him. So we would really make the humor his, and we would be very careful to make sure it came out of him naturally, because it's no good an actor suddenly doing the rhythms that don't work. On the other hand, when I have a comic like I had in Pretty Woman, a guy named Larry Miller, very funny comic. So with him, instead of trying to adjust, I say, here's the premise, Larry. You stand here, see? And here's the thing. He's coming in the store, and you have to kiss up to him. That's the premise. So you kind of rap a little bit. We gave him some roads. And then I put one camera on Larry, and then I isolate Richard and Julia over here. And Julia said, why am I sitting over here? I said, your motivation to sit over here, dear, is because we don't know what Larry's going to say. See? So we need a cutaway to you, so in case he makes a mistake, or when maybe he's not funny, we cut to you smiling.
Reaction.
We cut back to him. You get a reaction of you, and I understand. And then that way I let Larry spin. He went wherever he wanted, and I could just take the best of him. So the comic, to make the comic an actor, very often I use cutaways, so I only get the beauty and the great moments of the comic. For the actor who's going to be funny, I tailor it.
You were always known, as you were coming up in the ranks, you were always known as funny, funny, funny. And there's a word, and I've been doing a little homework, there's a word called sentimentality. that they're starting to put alongside of your name?
That's the word I was going to say. They sit out when we sentimentality if they like me. They say corny if they don't. But both are used.
Do you find that when they use it, and they're using it in a positive sense,
Yes.
it's a compliment, isn't it?
I once said that I do romance and sentimentality. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. I am very comfortable with sentimentality. I'm very comfortable with romantic moments. What I like to do in the midst of sentimentality is to get humor, not little cute lines, big, solid humor right in the middle of it. That way you get both going, and I think it really has the two elements that makes one feel good, laughter and just that wonderful nostalgia, sentiment, and feeling good in romance.
We'll be right back with Garry Marshall.
We're going to be spending an obscene amount of money in here. So we're going to need a lot more help sucking up to us, because that's what we really like. You understand that?
Sir, if I may say so, you're in the right store and the right city, for that matter.
Anything you see here we can do, by the way. Get ready to have some fun, okay? Mary Pat, Mary Kate, Mary Frances, Tova, let's see it. Come on.
Yeah. Exactly how obscene an amount of money were you talking about? Just profane or really offensive?
Really offensive.
I like him so much.
From high school, you go on to Northwestern University. You're a jazz musician. You studied, journalism. It's a very noble calling. And you seem to give it up writing comedy material for Phil Foster, Joey Bishop, Buddy Hackett. I bought a few jokes from you. Why the jokes?
I think that I failed at everything else. That's where I was groping for something. I rose to great heights of mediocrity as a journalist, as a musician. I even tried stand-up a little bit, and I would do a stand-up act, and after the show, people would come up and they would congratulate all the other comics, and they would come up to me and say, "Can I buy that contact lens piece?" When I worked, everybody thought they could do my act better than me. So I figured there was a hint that maybe
Somebody was trying to tell you something.
Yeah, they were saying, maybe I should write something. With line from Flamingo Kid, the whole point is to find something you love to do and something you do well. And if they happen to be the same thing, you're doing pretty good.
You got it made.
So I found that I did like to do comedy, and I wrote jokes, and I figured out that somebody paid you for this finally.
Well, you go to work for the greatest single piece of white bread in the history of American television, Jack Parr.
Yes, well...
What did he see? And he said you had, and I read somewhere that he said he said you wrote jokes like a 4-year-old.
Yes, that was a compliment.
Yeah, I know. What did he mean? Tell me what he meant by that.
He used to do a part of his monologue was he would read letters from camp, letters little children wrote from camp to their parents. And they didn't really write them. I don't want to shock anybody. We wrote them. Very high-paid staff wrote these letters from camp. So there were letters from 5- and 6-year-olds, and I would write them, and he always thought I wrote the best letters. I did things like, "Dear Mom and Dad, you forgot to sew my name in my underwear, and all the kids now call me Fruit of the Loom." Strange things like this. And so he loved what I wrote, and he always said, "See, why don't you all write like Garry? He has a 5-year-old mind." And I thought it was a compliment at the time. But I wrote for him because Joey Bishop and Phil Foster helped me get into
Well, I see. They were appearing.
And I come from the streets of the Bronx, and in the streets of the Bronx, people in the Bronx have perfect comedy timing. They always do.
So do they have in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn, I would say, all right, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and not Staten Island.
No, nothing.
Drops lower there in Staten Island. But they have a different kind of humor, kind of a Herb Shrine attempt. But Bronx and Brooklyn, they have that rhythm. Years later, I went back to the Bronx on a show, 2020. They did me, and I went back to my old neighborhood. So I'm standing in front of my own apartment building. So I see a kid sticking his head out the window. So I'm trying to be glib. So I say to the kid, "What are you doing? You live there, or are you robbing the apartment?" He says, "Both." No hesitation, both.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing, both. Like this, buried me in front of Hugh Downs. But it's just that timing from the streets did not fit into Jack Parr's mouth too well. But he would then make it, like you said, a white bread version of it. And I realized you could take kind of the rhythms of the streets and make them a little more white bread, which I did years later, put the same stuff into Ron Howard's mouth, another wonderful regular person, Garry, Indiana, and it came out pretty good. So I found out with Jack Parr that worked.
We'll be right back with the comedy mind of Garry Marshall.
Well done.
Tell me again why we're here.
Business?
Business mingling?
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, instead of just writing letters from camp, now you're starting to write form. 24 minutes or 26 minutes was ever needed, a beginning, a middle, and end.
Very hard for me. Very hard.
It was very hard for you.
Very hard. The
Construction.
hardest thing I ever did. Because I always, snappy one-liners, that's what I knew how to do. And Fred Freeman and I became to the best at writing. We wrote for
You
all
did.
the
I know you.
comics. And then to adjust to a story and say, no, you got to do it out of character, you got to do it out of so they don't sound like jokes, it has to look effortless. It was a big adjustment because I had all, Jack Carter, boom, boom, boom. I knew how to do that. So I must say I had good teachers, though. And one of them was, Joey Bishop was making the same adjustment. He used to fly us around to where he was working. He would say, fly out to Chicago. He'd send us plane tickets. We would take the plane tickets, cash them in, take a bus. Right? We did this all over the country. We come to the bus. So we always say, we're late, Joey. He calls us from Hollywood. He says, hello? I'm bringing you out to Hollywood. I'm sending you the plane tickets. Don't cash them in for the bus because I need you right away. It's the first time he acknowledged he knew we were doing that. But he was making an adjustment, too, from stand-up to situation comedy, just like Danny Thomas did. So it was a big adjustment because the thing is the comic always wants to play out. When I work direct comics now, the biggest problem I have is they won't look at the other person. They say, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. I said, no, push your head over here.
There's a person here.
There's a person. You got to forget the other thing. I had the same adjustment, to take the one-liners and make them fit in the character's mouth. And Carl Reiner was a great teacher. And I remember I wrote once in a Dick Van Dyke show, Dick is getting ready for a wedding. And he puts his cummerbund on funny, and then he says, and I made a glib remark, and Carl says, what is this? He puts his cummerbund on funny. He says, you can't, I could get a guy off the street to write, he puts his you got to tell me how he puts his cummerbund on funny. You got to go to cummerbund and write it out, how exactly he does it. And then I realized that's another way of writing.
And it was the learning process.
Writing visual things. It's not a mistake people do funny things and when I do movies now. It's not like it just happened. Pretty Woman, she takes opera glasses. She does a thing. Now, they know I'm going to make them do something. And in Pretty Woman, when she came into this opera scene, she saw the opera glasses, and she told the prop man, hide these. Garry will make me do something funny with them. So I said, where's the opera glass? And so then different ways, it's like 20 minutes of figuring out what to do with those. Then we got it. Not what I thought was funny, not what was best funny. The key is what she could do. What fit her funny. She's the actor. She's the star. Who cares how I do it funny? I'm not there. I'm sitting backstage trying to stop dripping.
You didn't write Pretty Woman. I'm sure you made a great contribution to the final script.
Jonathan Lawton, a wonderful writer.
Jonathan Lawton. All right, now, as a writer, what is easier for you, to direct your own words or someone else's?
I find it easier to direct my own words because I can be crueler to myself. I can say, this stinks, I can do better. When it's the writer's words, you don't want to say that. Sometimes they visit, so you say, we'll try this over here, and you try. And you really sometimes, I like to work. When I make an odd thing I do, I must say, when I do comedy now or whatever I do, I make the writer read it to me out loud. I make him read it with me because I want to see where he's going. And how he interpreting it, what he meant. Because sometimes I don't see what he meant. Then I have him read it, and I see exactly what he meant. It's been a great help to me doing that.
Years ago, I wrote jokes for Gleason. I used to, I was supplementing my income. I used to write the opening monologue. And then Jackie would say to me, come in and read the monologue. But I was already a stand-up comedian. I was just trying to make a couple extra bucks. And I'd do this page of new jokes. And he used to laugh, and he'd say, that's good for you. Now, what do you got for me? And every new joke I would write for Gleason always reminded him of an old joke, and he felt more comfortable doing the old joke.
That's right. They always feel more. But that was the difference between New York and L.A. In New York, with Gleason, a lot of times you would write it, and sometimes you slip it under the door, you hand it to him. In L.A., I was stunned. I came out here, they didn't read. You'd hand it to him, and the guy said, no, tell it to me. He didn't want to read it, give him a treatment or anything. No, tell it to me. So I was very shy, and I, it's about a guy, and
it's known as the pitch. Nervous. They call it the pitch.
And then I had Jerry Belton. I used to stand in front of a mirror and rehearse the pitch, how we can go in there, and when you pitch, you can't sit like this, because then they think you're dying. You got to sit on the edge of your chair like this. Then what happens? And then there's energy. And Harry Crane taught me how to curse when you pitch. If you throw in a lot of curse words, it mixes them up.
They love it.
They think it's funnier. You know, so it's a whole technique I've done. And Jerry and I developed that. But in New York, you never had to speak to anybody. He said, here's the material. Hi, how are you? And goodbye, and you were out the door.
We'll be right back with the comedy mind of Garry Marshall.
If you're afraid of heights, why do you get seats up here?
Because they're the best.
Is there anything else, sir?
No.
The glasses are there. Enjoy the
Oh. So, you said this is in Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So how am I going to know what they're saying? These are broken. Mine are broken.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
You're a young drummer in Miami, and stand-up comic comes out in front of your combo and starts doing his jokes and impressions, and becomes a legend for many reasons. Lenny Bruce. Lenny said pain plus time equals humor. And he also said to you, and this is, I found this in a story about you, he said, everything that ever happens to you, save. Because after you get over the pain, later, you'll turn it into a joke. Do you think that comedy comes from pain and deprivation?
I think some of it. There was two schools, you know, up until like in the 50s when I started first getting involved with it, really. It was all the jokes, the one-liners. You know, the traffic was so heavy that I drove from Manhattan to Long Island in neutral. You know, I wrote that joke.
I know, and you got $5 for it.
$5, I bought you. But there were a lot of, those were the rhythm jokes. Then guys started coming about, and the first ones I must say I saw was Phil Foster started to talk about his life. I saw you start doing jokes. I remember you used to do that joke about you want to get even with the cab driver when you leave, don't shut the
leave the door open.
Yes, you know the joke better. You know how to, but those were not jokes that were based on rhythm. Those were jokes that based on something we actually happened to us. And maybe when you were mad at the cab driver before you came up with that, you were mad. There was an anger. There was a pain to that. So you took the pain, you made it into humor. Lenny Bruce was another one who knew how to take some of the darker things that happened in life, some of the real pain, the pain we didn't talk about. You could talk about a cab driver aggravated you, but maybe you couldn't talk about the time that this girl wouldn't kiss you, or the time that you were so upset because your parents didn't think you were as good as your brother or your sister. He started investigating this kind of pain, and even that kind of pain later, if you look back on it, could be turned into a certain kind of humor, and a self-deprecation kind of humor. And that kind of became popular in the 60s, where we would confess a lot of things, what happened to us, and the embarrassment.
Nichols and May.
Yes. When we were on the old Dick Van Dyke Show, truthfully, they would say, well, how do you write those jokes? What do you do? Must have been fun, all you funny guys together. What we used to really do, Carl would sit down, we'd come with 6 writers, and Carl would say, okay, let's all think back on our most embarrassing and painful moments. And we would all think about a time a girl dumped us, or something went wrong, or we were embarrassed at an airport or something by somebody, and that's what we would make the stories to. One of my ones I talk about is I have some moles on my back, and my mother, like a Bronx mother, said one day to me that when I was 10 years old, she says, you know, if I took a pencil and connected all your moles, I would get a picture. So this, of course, devastated a 10-year-old. I cried for 2 hours. I would never take my shirt off at the beach for 2 years. But later with Carl on the old Dick Van Dyke, I came up with this. I talked about this. And it was therapy for money, we used to call it. And we did a show where Dick went to sleep with his shirt off. His kid connected the moles on his back. It came out a picture of the Liberty Bell, and he went to Believe It or Not. And we won a prize for that episode. So that's an example of taking some embarrassing moment.
I want to talk about Fonzie for a minute. Now, here's a motorcycle kid with slick hair, boots. I mean, the image of Hell's Angel, in a sense. Give me your analysis of why this, this tough kid, became a national hero.
My 2 idols at the time were Joe DiMaggio and the Lone Ranger. Joe DiMaggio was always cool, never did nothing silly. Never slid on his stomach in the wet top. No. Never saw Joe DiMaggio do such a thing.
Never adjusted his jock,
Nothing. Never touched down there. Nothing. Stood there like, hello, how are you? I'm a center fielder. That's what he did. I have 56 straight games I do, sir. But so Fonzie was kind of that guy who was cool, who was above it all, who didn't get rattled. Now, as the years went on, we rattled him a little bit. but right away he would save it. Whatever you said to him, he'd say, I know that, I knew that, I know that's what you said. He would lie, but he would say that. But I think he was a hero at a time in the 70s where the people were looking for a hero. You know, if the 60s were kind of difficult and people wanted somebody to come out and say, everything is fine, I'm in control here. And that's what Fonzie did. What he was talking about is adolescence. And I think that's what made him so popular.
Talking to those of you, or my contemporaries, who also, in one way or another, do comedy, it's a very serious business.
I always like to have hope. I think everybody, you know, has their thing. You know, Frank Capra did it. He is not doing it anymore. Rockwell has depicted it. Walt Disney did it. He's not around. So I think there is a voice that has been mine, which has been a very positive thing, that it could work out. Always hope, dream it could. Maybe it won't. Maybe you get wrapped. And a lot of my work does it, and as I do more and more, in movies you have to be more real. Like in Pretty Woman, you know, they think about, ooh, it had such a pretty ending. But a lot of it was rough. I was showing the reality. You know, people died of crack in Pretty Woman. So I wasn't fooling the public. I wasn't saying the world is all purity. I said, yeah, this is a world where somebody just died of crack. This is a world where you have to use prophylactics now, or you could die. But yet, even in this world we live, there could be something that is hopeful. A boy could meet a girl. They could go off to opera music. It's still a hope, and it's a dream.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us inside the Comedy Mind. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Al.
Real pleasure. You don't have that. It's got to come out. You don't have your professionalism. You're right. I know it's not. You're not going to get it right. I'm not going to
sometimes, I mean, just like you said, I was going to tell them, we stood on the streets and ended a Pretty Woman.
From New York, clean that windshield for you, mister. It's Late Night with David Letterman. Tonight, Bob Costas, musical group The Jayhawks, and comedian Jimmy Walker, plus Paul Schaefer and the world's most dangerous band. And now, a man who at this very moment is kissing his good luck photo of Walter Cronkite, David Letterman.
Ladies and gentlemen, sit down. You're making fools of yourselves. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dave. I am your host. Thank you very much for showing up, and thanks to you folks at home for dialing us up. I feel great. I feel wonderful. Over the weekend, I had a baboon liver put in, and I feel like a new man, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier today, CBS made the startling announcement that Knots Landing will... made the startling announcement that Knots Landing is going off the air. That's right. And I think I speak for... Wait a minute. I think I speak for all of Americans when I say, Knots Landing is still on the air? I had one of those baboon livers installed. I feel like $1 million. Over the weekend, something very exciting happened here in New York City. It's one of those New York City stories that makes you think this may be the city with a heart of gold. There was a mother-to-be traveling on a subway train, and between the place she got on the train and the place she got off the train, she gave birth. She had a baby, right? She was traveling on the subway, had a baby right there on the train. And, you know, here in New York City, nobody really paid that much attention. It's just another drooling naked person. That's all, you know. You see plenty of those on the subways. Earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, from the Oprah Winfrey offices in Chicago. Oprah's in Chicago, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Oprah. And as a little side story here, Oprah has all the money. You wonder why there's been a recession? Ask Oprah. Oprah has all the money. So anyway, Oprah announced that later in the year on ABC, she'll be conducting a live 90-minute interview with Michael Jackson. That'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see if he can go 90 minutes without touching himself. I think that's... You know, we have a terrific program for you here. Our old friend Bob Costas will be out a little bit later. Mr. Sports, Bob Costas is here. Here's the conversation those guys had on the phone before they came to the show.
Oh, what are you going to wear, Larry?
I'm going to wear a sweater and a hat. What do you... I'm just going to wear the sweater. Okay, great. There they are. I don't know.